Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs here at the University of North Texas. So it's my privilege to be able to welcome you all this morning. Gatherings like this are the sort of thing I truly look forward to. It's obviously a little different from our normal work-a-day lives. And the initiative that we're going to be talking about for the day today is one that I think is truly important for public higher education and, if I may be so grandiose, for democracy. It's important for us to think about access to information, and I think that's really what we're all about today. It's also wonderful when a provost can say to a couple of deans and a couple of associate deans, wow, this would be a great initiative, and then she turns around 6 months later and it's all happened. One of the things I've learned, and this is with all due respect to my faculty colleagues, I am a faculty member, I love being a member of the faculty, but as a provost, it was the first time I ever had the libraries reporting to me, and that means I had an opportunity to work, well, relatively at a distance, but to work with librarians. And something I've learned is that if you really want to get something done, you get the librarians involved. And this also is typical of some of our librarian colleagues. I think the people who did the major heavy lifting to really pull this all together were Kathy Hartman and Bill Mullen in many ways. And one or the other of them, or both of them together, provided me a list of people to thank, and they're not at the top of the list. But Bill and Kathy, many, many thanks. I don't even see Kathy. Where are you, Kathy? Thank you. There you are. Thanks very much to Bill and Kathy. Also, my very good colleagues and friends, Dean Herman Totten, Dean of the College of Information, and Martin Halbert, Dean of UNT Libraries, very much moving forces in bringing all of this together. You can applaud them too. Yeah. All initiatives like this, and actually let me share that this initiative is more than a conference. There was a lot of work done behind the scenes to bring all of you together and to move the conference organizing around. But we, of course, have work to do beyond the conference. So I am hopeful that UNT will soon adopt an open access initiative. And so there are at least two groups of people that have been working to move this along. We have the organizing committee for this conference, but we also have the group that has been working on the UNT policy, which I hope you will appreciate as a model of good policy making. But let me mention the members of the organizing committee. Christy Crutsinger, who's the Associate Dean of the School of Merchandising and Hospitality Management, and she's been serving as a special assistant to the provost working in my office. And she was really the liaison between the office of the provost and the organizers of this committee. Also, Jerhi Curtis, External Affairs Officer for the College of Information. Kathy Hartman, Associate Dean of the Libraries, who I've already mentioned. Bill Moan, who's the Director of Research for the College of Information, and Tedra Kelly, who works in my office as the Special Events Coordinator. So my thanks to all of them. Now, of course, an event like this takes participants from all around campus. The organizing committee has particularly singled out for thanks Scott Jackson, the Garrett Rumor and Frank Gosnell, Scott Jackson, Garrett Rumor, and Frank Gosnell for the Symposium registration system. They're members of the UNT Libraries. Nina Wang and Will Hicks for the open access at UNT website and the Symposium site, and Susan Pass, Assistant Dean of Libraries for Fiscal Affairs. So thanks to all of them for their work. Hold your applause or we'll never get through this. Also members of my office who were helpful to the group, Wanda Fisher, my executive assistant, and Mary Foster, the administrative specialist. In the College of Information, Elvira Aguilar, marketing specialist, Shannon Stark, Master's Student in Library and Information Sciences, and Teresa Jackson, the Administrative Services Officer. Okay, now a round of applause, and thanks for them. Okay, as I said, we are hopeful that there is a real product to come from the work of many people on campus and the background leading up to this symposium and the work that we have to do after it. So we do have an open access policy committee that has been working to draft the policy for UNT, and I want to recognize and thank those people. I'd like to actually single out one person who's joined us this morning, and it's the recent past president of UNT, Gretchen Bataille. Thank you, Gretchen, for joining us. I don't know if all of you are aware that Gretchen is a member of the editorial board of Sage Publications, and she is in a position to make a difference on matters of open access and working with members of the publishing world. And I think you can appreciate the amount of heavy lifting that will need to be done by, for example, members of boards for major scientific and educational publishing groups. So we look forward to you making a difference there, Gretchen. Thank you. Okay, now I have the pleasure of doing something I never thought I would do, and that's read a letter to you from Senator John Cornyn. I'm going to be a good girl and make no comments of a political nature. Other than to say that people of many different backgrounds, beliefs, and persuasions have recognized the importance of open access. And Senator Cornyn, along with Senator Lieberman, were responsible for filing some legislation that I think we can all agree is important. So Senator Cornyn has written to us, so I will read his letter to this group. He addressed it to the 2010 Open Access Symposium, the University of North Texas. Dear friends, I recently learned that the University of North Texas will be hosting an open access symposium in Denton, Texas. I regret that I could not be with you today to welcome the participants to North Texas. To put things in perspective, the federal government spends upwards of $55 billion on investments for basic and applied research every year. While this research is undoubtedly necessary and is beneficial to America, it remains the case that not all Americans are capable of experiencing these benefits firsthand. Despite the fact that the research was paid for by Americans' tax dollars, most citizens are unable to attain timely access to the wealth of information that this research provides. As a result, Senator Joe Lieberman and I have introduced Senate Bill 1373, the Federal Research Public Access Act, which would require that 11 U.S. government agencies with annual extramural research expenditures over $100 million make manuscripts of journal articles stemming from research funded by that agency publicly available via the internet. Open government is one of the most basic requirements of any healthy democracy. It allows for taxpayers to see where their money is going, permits the honest exchange of information that ensures government accountability, and upholds the ideal that government never rules without the consent of the people. Our government is based not on the need to know, but upon the fundamental right to know. I applaud the efforts of the University of North Texas to make open access a priority for institutions of higher learning in Texas. It is a pleasure to represent you in the United States Senate, and I offer my best wishes for a successful event. So I think a very nice letter from Senator Cornyn, and I have a feeling that our library will know how to make sure that that letter is forever available to members of the community. Finally, I would like to recognize representatives and guests from other universities that are here with us today. We have participants in the symposium from UNT Dallas and the UNT Health Sciences Center, our two sister institutions in the UNT system. And also we have participants from other universities around Texas, from Abilene Christian, from Austin College, from Baylor University, Rice University, Southern Methodist University, Texas A&M University Commerce, Texas Christian University, Texas Tech University, Texas Women's University, University of Texas Dallas, University of Texas Arlington, and University of Texas Tyler. So my thanks to all of you for joining us, and I hope that what we learned today can also help your institutions move forward with important open access initiatives. Okay, those are the introductory remarks for the opening of the symposium. Many people to thank and many people to welcome. It's also now my pleasure to be able to kick off the introduction of our distinguished guest speakers for the symposium. And I'm lucky enough to be the one to introduce Stephen Harnad. And I'm guessing that many of you know Professor Harnad from the work that you have done and from the work that he has been done on this initiative and many others. But I need to tell a kind of personal thing about Steve Harnad, because I don't know if he knows that he was very important in my own personal career. I wrote an article. My training is in linguistics, by the way, of the very formal sort, of the Chomskyan sort of linguistics. And during the period that I was a graduate student, linguistics was all about being more scientific than any other of the disciplines that might have been accused of being social sciences. So we were all about being serious scientists. That meant that there were certain topics that weren't considered sufficiently scientific to be considered by real linguists. And one such topic was the origins of human language. So many serious scientific linguists believed that the origins of language were not subject to scientific investigation. At the point at which I was hoping to be promoted to full professor, this was when I was at Arizona State University, I wrote a very long article, co-authored with a graduate student, specifically on the biological origins of the capacity for human language. And I submitted it to one of the 2 top linguistics journals in the country at the time. And I was told that this was not linguistics. It was summarily rejected. And I then turned around and submitted the article to a journal called Behavioral and Brain Sciences. That was a very scary journal to submit an article to, because that journal published articles that were then subject to public peer review. So you submitted an article, and then there was commentary published on the article. And then the only good thing about this was that the authors of the primary article got to respond to the commentators. So you did kind of get the last word, that it was a very scary sort of publishing endeavor to be engaged in, but a truly exciting one as well, because that journal encouraged debate. And Steve, if you go back and look at especially early issues of that journal, he was publishing articles on lots of truly interdisciplinary topics and some very controversial ones. So Steve, you made a big difference in my career. So I thank you. He was also, I believe, the moving force behind one of the first open access journals. I didn't know to call it an open access journal at the time. I just loved the name of it. It was Psycholoquy. And I don't know how many of you were paying attention when Psycholoquy first came on the scene, but who thought of that name? It was like fabulous. Was that you? That's great. It was a great initiative, but the name was really perfect. So beyond all these other things. A little bit of a more formal introduction of Stephen. He was born in Hungary, and he did his undergraduate work at McGill University and his graduate work at Princeton. He's currently Canada Research Chair in Cognitive Science at the Université du Québec à Montréal and Professor in Electronics and Computer Science at University of Southampton, UK. His research is on categorization, communication, and cognition. As I mentioned, he was the founder and editor of Behavioral and Brain Sciences, which is still a paper journal. He's also the past president of the Society for Philosophy and Psychology and an external member of the Hungarian Academy of Science. He's the author of many, many publications, and I won't take your time by reading the list, but his resume includes authorship and contributing authorship to over 300 publications. He has really become known in the open access movement. So in addition to having a very distinguished career as a researcher and as a journal editor and creator, he has, I think, become a proselytizer for the importance of assuring that scientific research is made available to everyone, as much as possible. I'm going to mention just a couple of other things that he has been a very active participant, and often I'm guessing the founding originator. You may be aware of CogPrints, another initiative that I became aware of as a faculty member. It is one of the first central open access repositories. He also created the first citation impact measuring search engine, Sitebase. He created and maintains ROAR, the Registry of Open Access Repositories, which is a worldwide repository. He collaborated in the creation and maintenance of the Romeo Directory of Journals, Open Archive self-accessing policies. He created and maintains ROARMap, the Registry of Open Access mandates. So I hope that UNT will become well known in those initiatives of Stephen's. I could go on, but I think probably better is for us to actually hear from Stephen himself. So thank you very much for joining us. Oh, I have to tell you one other thing. The way this open access symposium really got started, I forget why I was in touch with Stephen Harnad. It was some innocent email. And he wrote back to me. He responded on whatever that email was, but then he kind of issued a challenge. He said, okay, Wendy, now you're a provost. Now you're in a position to do something about open access. And that was the reason that that all of this came together. So thank you for urging me on in that regard as well. Thank you.